What's up YouTube? My name is Caden and you're watching Gas It Garage. Today is part 2 of the 140cc engine swap on my SSR pit bike. Enjoy the video. Alright guys, so in the last video of this 140cc swap, we got the engine in from eBay and I hooked up a 22 millimeter carburetor on it. I got the clutch hooked up with a new lever right here. I got the wiring all hooked up, shifter, kickstarter, foot pegs, chain, basically everything I needed to get this engine running. And I started up the engine, kind of tuned it a little bit, and I was able to go on a test drive. But you may notice that this is a different tire on the back, and that's because when I was doing that test drive, I actually ended up popping the rear tire because I forgot to inflate it. And it ended up ripping the inner tube because it was so flat and ended up destroying the old tire, which is actually sitting right here. There's cord showing, and it's kind of the same in multiple spots along the tire, and plus it is very bald, so I'm not going to use this tire anymore. And the inner tube popped, so I went ahead and replaced both the tire and the inner tube off camera. And I got this super beefy tire from a local motorsports shop where I live, and I got a new inner tube off of Amazon. But unfortunately, when I was putting this tire on, it was so stiff that I didn't realize that I had actually ripped the inner tube with the tire spoons when I was putting it on. And when I tried to inflate it, all I heard was air hissing out. So I tried to fix it with some tire slime, which obviously didn't work because it's leaking out all over the place and the tire is still flat. But I actually did film that test drive where I popped the tire. But unfortunately, when I was editing the last video, I completely forgot about the GoPro footage that I had filmed, and I didn't put it in the video. So I'm gonna throw that in right here. So as you can see from that, I popped the tire at the end of the street, and I had to ride this thing all the way back to the house, which I think is what destroyed the tire, just from basically pinching the tire between the rim and the road. So I now have to take this new tire back off, which is going to be not fun because it's a very, very stiff tire. And I'm going to throw another inner tube in it, and I'm going to try my best to not puncture the inner tube so we can actually have an inflatable tire. So let's go ahead and get this rear tire off and remove the whole rear wheel and tire assembly so I can not only get the inner tube replaced, but I'm also putting a different size sprocket on there because this thing is geared way too short. as you could probably tell by how high the engine was revving in that clip. So enough talking, let's go ahead and get to work. All right, guys, so I've run into a bit of an issue with this new rear sprocket that I got. This is the original one, and this is the smaller one, but as you can tell, the bolt holes are nowhere near the same. And if I try and put it on here, it's just not really working at all. I thought this was the right size when I got it, but obviously not. This is the gearing I want, because this is going to make this thing a lot faster, and this engine does have a lot more torque, so it'll be able to handle a much taller gear like this. So I have a few options here. I can either try and make an adapter, which probably isn't going to be able to happen because I don't have a lathe, or I can try and modify this and like make some sort of bracket to mount this on here, or maybe use the old sprocket and mount this to that and then that to this. But I think that's just too overly complicated. So I was thinking about it, and I think I'm just going to grind this down a little bit to clear the chain and just weld that thing right on there. Now, I know some of y'all are going to probably blast me in the comments for welding a sprocket straight to the wheel. But I mean, this is what I want on here permanently, and I'm eventually going to get probably a new rear wheel for this thing, because even though the green matches the pit bike, which is kind of cool, this thing is super rusty and beat up, and I kind of want a nice pit bike. So I really don't have any problem doing that, so I think that's what we're going to do. So I think I'm just going to grind the outside of this down to clear the chain, because as you can see, it's very close. And I'm also probably going to delete this right here, because I think that is going to get in the way. And also this makes it difficult if the chain pops off to get the chain back on. So let's go ahead and remove that. It's just 2 bolts, and go ahead and modify this, weld that thing on there, and then we can move on to replacing the inner tube, because it's still not arrived yet. So let's go ahead and get on this. All right, guys, so basically what I've done here is I realized that this original hub on here is actually made of aluminum, so I can't weld steel to it. So basically what I did is I chopped up the original sprocket and bolted it on, and then I cut the heads off of the bolts, and then welded those to the sprocket. So the whole modified spacer that I made from the sprocket is now permanent, and the bolts are definitely not coming out because they're welded on. I am in the process of welding on the new sprocket right here, but I just ran out of welding wire, so I'll need to go get some more of that. And then after that's welded, then I can grind down the inside edge right there on the old sprocket, which is now the spacer, to clear the chain, because the chain does need to wrap around that. And you may have noticed that I'm actually walking now without crutches, because on October 23rd, about a month and a half ago now, I broke my leg pretty bad because I had a pretty gnarly injury and wipeout at the skate park on my stunt scooter. which really sucked. It was not fun, and I haven't been able to work in the garage, let alone ride anything since then. So if you want to go see the full explanation video, I'll put a link in the description for that. But for right now, I'm excited to be back working in the garage, although I can't really do any heavy lifting or riding anything, like I said. But for right now, let's get back to working on the pit bike. All right, guys, so it's the next day, and I came out in the garage to get something, and I noticed this big puddle of oil underneath the pit bike here. I've already cleaned it up, and I had to actually move the pit bike off of this stand that I had right here and tilt it backwards because it was tilting forward. And I guess what happened is all the oil went into the cylinder head and leaked out right here through this little valve cover because the gasket is bad, I guess. So later in the video, I'll have to fix that with some ultra black gasket maker. But for right now, I still need to go out and get some welding wire for that. So I'll see you when I'm finishing this up. All right, guys, so I got some inner tubes right here. I got 2 of them just in case I ever need another one. So let's go ahead and get that tire off, get the old inner tube out and put the new one in. And then I can finish welding on the sprocket because I got some more welding wire. And then we'll put everything back together and then address that oil leak. Guys, so I'm coming out here to the shed, and I'm going to grab something that I think is going to solve our problem here, because I just put this new inner tube in and I ended up popping it again. So instead of going through that whole 30-minute process of replacing the inner tube and getting my hands covered in disgustingness, I'm just going to put some spray foam into this. We're going to do a little bit of an experiment here. I've seen people do it before on like car tires and stuff, and it didn't work super well just because a car is super heavy, but this pit bike only weighs like 100 pounds. So I'm gonna try it and see what happens. I'm gonna try and spray it through the valve stem right here, but I'm gonna have to take the core out of it, and I'm not even sure if I can do that. I may just have to debead the tire again and like spray it all on the inside, but I'm going to try and get it in the inner tube so it's somewhat contained and not leaking out all over the place. So I'm going to grab that and we're going to try a little experiment. So I got the wheel filled up with spray foam, or the tire I should say, and it is leaking a little bit right there, but it'll harden up. But hopefully this will work. If it doesn't, I guess I'll just have to take the tire back off. But I mean, the tire seems pretty hard right now. I can't hardly squish it at all. But once all that spray foam hardens up in there, because it's still like really squishy, hasn't gotten firmed up yet, but it's supposed to take like 24 hours to fully cure. So I'll probably come back to this tomorrow. And I kind of want to scrape all this off before I finish welding the sprocket, because I read on the bottle this stuff is flammable, like highly flammable, and I don't want to be welding right next to it. So I'm going to wait till it hardens up so I can scrape the rest of it off, and then I'll finish welding the sprocket. But right now, let's go ahead and fix the oil leak on the engine. guys, so the sprocket swap and the sketchy spray foam thing in the tire is actually done finally, and it seems to be working pretty well. I got this sprocket welded on and it's pretty centered, and I think it's welded on there pretty solid. It's a little janky, but I think it should work. And honestly, this tire is pretty hard with the spray foam in it, and it's got just the right amount of squish to it. I'll actually set the phone down and sit on it so you can see. So I think it's squishing pretty good, just like it's supposed to. It's got just the right amount of play in it. So I think the spray foam trick for a small tire actually does work. It's kind of difficult and very messy. My hands are still covered in spray foam residue from yesterday, so I'll have to find a way to get that off my hands. But other than that, I think this thing is finally ready for an actual test drive. So I actually can't ride this thing right now because my leg's still broken and it's healing, but I will turn the camera back on probably in a little while after a couple weeks to get out there and finally ride this thing. All right, guys, so what you just watched was all filmed back in December of 2025. It is now February 10th, 2026, and my leg is pretty much all healed up, or at least well enough to go ride this pit bike. So I'm super excited about this because I've been waiting for literally months to ride this thing ever since I broke my leg. But now it is finally time to take this 140cc pit bike for its first real test drive, because like I said earlier, the last test drive we took it on, the back tire popped. So, and also the engine was running like absolute garbage. So now I've got the engine running great. I did a little bit of tuning on the carburetor off camera. And then obviously we have the new tire filled with spray foam, which is actually holding quite nicely. So I'm gonna get some gear on and get some cameras, and we're gonna take this thing for a real test drive. Thing usually likes just a little bit of brake clean to start up. Maybe choke, I don't know. yeah. I had the speed thing going. Let's see. Sometimes it doesn't pick up for some reason. Yeah, it didn't pick up. Yeah, so I noticed that the back tire right here has gotten a lot squishier since we put the foam in it. This is probably why you shouldn't use spray foam in a tire, but this one's pretty small, and this tire rubber is really, really stiff. So I think we should be good to go to roll with it just off-road, but on-road, I think this tire will get worn down very, very quickly. All right, top speed run, take 2. Dump the clutch. All right, see if it picked it up that time. Yeah, it's not picking it up, but I think we're hitting probably about 40, 45, which is about the same as before, but the acceleration is way, way better. We're gonna try some wheelies. I'm terrible at them, but I'll try. Okay guys, unfortunately that's all the time I have to film today because I gotta have time to edit this video and post it and everything. And I also gotta work on the 1000cc go-kart over there and hopefully get that thing running soon. But this pit bike, I think overall is really, really cool. I think the top speed is pretty similar. Might be a little bit slower or maybe just a little bit faster, but I'm not super worried about that because the acceleration on this thing is way, way better. And it has probably 3 times as much torque as the original 70cc engine that was on this thing, even with the much taller gearing on it. I'm gonna learn how to wheelie this thing if it kills me. Well, hopefully not, but I am wanting to learn how to wheelie this pit bike because it's a lot of fun. It just always kind of sketches me out when it gets all the way up and I feel like I'm gonna fall off the back. I know I can use the back brake, but I just gotta kind of learn how to do that. It'll just take me some time. But I think the only issue we're having is the spray foam that I put in this wheel has gotten really squashed down, as you can see right there. So I'm not sure what I'll do about that. What I may do is just try and take this tire off again and get the spray foam out of it. And I'm gonna try maybe to convert this thing to a tubeless, because basically all you got to do to convert it to tubeless is seal up the spot where all of the spokes go in with like some tape or silicone or something, and then put a regular valve stem in it to get it to be a tubeless, which I would love to have on this thing. I think overall this thing is pretty much everything I wanted it to be, and the engine runs great, and this thing is just overall really awesome. So thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.